All right, get ready because today we're going deep into ancient Egypt, but not the pyramids or the pharaohs you might be expecting.
No.
We're talking baboon mummies.
Yeah.
You know, I ran across this study in PLOS ONE
Yeah.
that really kind of changed the way I thought about these ancient relics.
It is fascinating research. It goes beyond just like the typical mummification process and really digs into, like the lives these animals led before becoming, part of the afterlife.
You know, I always just picture them living like this cushy life, like pampered pets of the pharaohs, right?
Right.
But this research paints a very different picture, kind of a sad picture.
Yeah. It's kind of the first thing that jumps out is that baboons weren't even native to Egypt.
Oh, really?
So right away we have a mystery.
Yeah, where did they come from? And how did they end up so integrated into, ancient Egyptian religion that they would be mummified?
Exactly.
Yeah.
To understand that, we need to head to a place called Gabbanat el-Qurud, or as it's more dramatically known, the Valley of the Monkeys. This site is packed with baboon mummies spanning over 1,000 years, 9th century BC to the 4th century AD. And it seems to have been more than just a burial ground, though.
So more like like a baboon holding facility?
Essentially. Imagine it. A place where these animals were kept before mummification. And what's truly intriguing is that this study, they analyzed the skeletal remains of over 36 baboons from this very site, all dating back to around 800, 500 BC.
Oh, wow. So that's a pretty specific snapshot in time.
It is.
What did they find?
Well, many of the baboon bones showed signs of malnutrition and a lack of sunlight. They had what are called lesions, which are basically damaged areas on the bone, suggesting they weren't getting proper nutrients or were suffering from, diseases linked to like cramped, unhygienic conditions.
So not exactly the lap of luxury I was picturing.
Yeah, not at all.
Any other signs of, a rough life?
Researchers also found deformities on the bones, likely from living in confined spaces. It all points to a pretty bleak existence for these animals, which is jarring considering their sacred status.
Yeah, you would think they would be treated with much more care.
Right.
Wouldn't keeping them healthy ensure that they could fulfill these sacred roles more effectively? I mean, it seems counterintuitive to revere these animals and then subject them to such harsh conditions.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not just at Gabbanat el-Qurud either. Similar health issues have been found in baboon remains from other sites like Saqqara and Tuna el-Gebel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So this wasn't an isolated case of baboon mistreatment. It seems like it was a common practice.
It does seem that way.
In ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
That's kind of unsettling, to say the least.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what the prevailing attitudes were towards these animals,
Indeed. And that's precisely the kind of question this research prompts us to ask.
Yeah?
If baboons were so revered, why subject them to these difficult living conditions?
Right.
Was it simply a matter of practicality, the challenges of keeping wild animals in captivity, or is there like a deeper, more complex cultural explanation? Something about their beliefs that we're not grasping.
Okay. I am hooked.
Kuh.
Where do we go from here?
Well, the PLOS ONE study proposes some interesting directions. For example, they suggest that analyzing the baboon's teeth could give us insight into their diet.
Oh, because different foods leave behind different traces. I remember reading that you can even tell what kinds of plants an animal ate based on the wear patterns on their teeth.
Exactly. And by analyzing the chemical composition of those teeth, we could go even further. Like, were they getting a specialized diet? Were they given food offerings similar to humans?
Oh, that's a great point. I mean, could their diet tell us whether baboons were seen as more than just animals? Maybe something closer to intermediaries between the human and the divine realms.
Precisely.
It's like a whole other layer of understanding their role in society.
Precisely. And another exciting avenue is DNA analysis.
Okay.
If they can extract DNA from the remains, we might be able to pinpoint their origins and even learn about the breeding practices used.
Oh.
Imagine knowing if they were selectively bred for specific traits.
It would be like cracking a code, revealing not just where these baboons physically came from, but you know how the ancient Egyptians viewed and manipulated the natural world to fit their spiritual needs?
Absolutely. Each piece of the puzzle brings us closer to a more complete picture of the relationship between humans and animals in ancient Egypt.
I am already feeling like I need a mental map to keep track of all these fascinating details.
Yeah.
But before we get lost in the labyrinth, I think it's time to take a closer look at what those bone analyses tell us about the lives of these baboons.
Absolutely. Let's delve deeper into the specifics of their living conditions, the possible reasons behind their malnutrition, and what those deformities tell us about their captivity. So let's take those bone lesions as our starting point.
Okay.
These lesions, as we mentioned, are essentially areas of damage on the bone. Now, there can be many causes, but in this case, the patterns suggest malnutrition, and possibly even diseases that thrive in cramped, unhygienic conditions.
It's like trying to solve a historical medical mystery.
It-
What were these baboons eating?
Mm.
And just how bad were their living conditions?
Right. Well, those are the exact questions researchers are trying to answer.
Yeah.
And one thing that really stands out is the evidence of a lack of sunlight.
Hmm.
This points to them being kept indoors, perhaps in cages or enclosed spaces for, extended periods.
Okay, so that makes those bone deformities all the more tragic. If they were constantly confined, it would explain why their skeletons show signs of, abnormal development.
Precisely. It's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Limited space restricts movement, leading to weakened and deformed bones, especially when combined with a poor diet.
So imagine a baboon, an animal that would naturally be roaming free, climbing trees, foraging for food,
Right.
suddenly confined to a small, dark space. It's kind of heartbreaking.
It does challenge our initial image of baboons living a pampered life, doesn't it?
It does. And speaking of challenging assumptions, I keep coming back to this question. If they were so sacred, why not treat them with the utmost care? Was it just impractical to provide these animals with, ideal living conditions?
That's a question that gets to the heart of the matter. Remember, we're talking about a society with a complex belief system where animals weren't just animals.
Right.
They were symbols, deities, intermediaries between the human and divine realms.
Yeah, so maybe their understanding of care was different from ours. Maybe the ritualistic purpose of these baboons, their role in the afterlife, overshadowed their earthly well-being.
It's a fascinating possibility, and that's where future research could be so enlightening.
Yeah.
Imagine if we could analyze the texts, the artwork, the archaeological evidence together to really understand what the ancient Egyptians believed about the treatment of these sacred animals.
We might find that our modern concept of animal welfare just simply didn't exist in the same way back then.
Exactly. Or maybe we'll find evidence of differing opinions, even debates within ancient Egyptian society about the proper treatment of sacred animals. Wouldn't that be amazing?
It would completely change our understanding of their ethical framework.
Right.
Speaking of changing our understanding, what about that DNA analysis you mentioned earlier?
Yep, great.
Could that give us more clues about how they justified keeping these animals in captivity?
Well, not directly about justification, but it could give us vital information about the origins of these baboons. Were they all captured from the wild? Or did they eventually establish breeding programs to ensure a steady supply?
Knowing what you know about ancient Egyptian beliefs, what kind of breeding practices do you think they might have employed?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. It's tempting to imagine them selectively breeding for certain traits.
Yeah.
Perhaps those linked to specific deities or rituals. Imagine breeding baboons for their size, color, or even temperament.
That's mind-blowing.
Right?
It's like they were shaping nature to fit their spiritual needs.
It is.
A completely different way of thinking about the relationship between humans and animals.
It is, isn't it? And it brings us back to that central question. How did their spiritual beliefs influence the way they treated these animals?
We've talked about the possibility that their concept of care differed from ours. But what if there's more to it? What if those seemingly harsh conditions were in some way part of the baboon's spiritual journey?
Now, that's a provocative thought.
Yeah.
Are we imposing our modern values on the past? Could there be a spiritual dimension to this story that we're simply not grasping?
It makes you wonder if there's a whole other layer of meaning embedded in these mummified remains.
Right.
A layer that goes beyond physical well-being and speaks to a deeper connection between humans, animals, and the divine.
Exactly. It's a reminder that the past is full of mysteries. And the more we learn, the more we realize how much we still don't know.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the complexities of this, seemingly straightforward topic.
It's not just about bones and bandages, is it?
Yeah.
It's about understanding a culture's worldview, their beliefs, and how those shape their interactions with the natural world.
Yeah, it really is. Makes you think, maybe we're not as advanced as we think we are.
I think that's a really important point. This isn't about judging the past by our own standards. It's about trying to understand their worldview, their values,
Right.
and how those shape their interactions with the animal kingdom.
And maybe in doing so, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the evolution of our own ethical values
Absolutely.
and how those continue to shape our interactions with the animal world today,
Absolutely. And this deep dive has highlighted how much more there is to discover. I mean, we've talked about the potential of DNA analysis to pinpoint the baboon's origins,
Right.
the possibility of breeding programs,
Yeah.
and the clues hidden within their diet.
And let's not forget those hints about the spiritual significance of these baboons. That were those harsh conditions, like the ones we see evidence of, were those part of some greater ritualistic purpose? It makes you wonder if there's like a whole other layer of meaning embedded in these mummified remains that we've yet to decipher.
Yeah. It's a reminder that archaeology isn't just about digging up bones and artifacts. It's about piecing together a story, a narrative that helps us understand the past
Right.
and connect it to the present.
Yeah. And sometimes the most intriguing stories are the ones that leave us with more questions than answers.
Exactly. This deep dive into the world of baboon mummies has been a journey of discovery,
It has.
but it's also a journey that's just beginning.
So to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and given you a new perspective on those ancient Egyptian baboons.
And perhaps it's even inspired you to do a little deep dive of your own.
Yeah.
After all, there's always more to learn, more to uncover, more to understand about the past and its influence on the present.
Because sometimes the smallest details can reveal the most profound truths. Who knew that a baboon mummy could hold the key to understanding a civilization's relationship with the animal kingdom?
It's a reminder that the past is never truly past. It lives on in the stories we tell, the questions we ask, and the connections we make.
Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those brains buzzing.
Bye!